Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Victory Monday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports after the Philadelphia Eagles clinched the NFC East with a 41-7 beatdown of the Dallas Cowboys, sweeping them for the first time since 2011. Johnny Mack, how you doing in this Monday morning, brother?
Doing well. Some necessary business taken care of by the Philadelphia Eagles. 20th consecutive year, by the way. New NFC East champion from the year prior. So that's something to worry about for all the Warriors early next season because the odds say you're probably not going to win it twice in a row. But bad news, locked into the number. Not that that's bad news. Locked into the number 2 seed, cannot get that number 1 seed. So Minnesota beating Green Bay put that pipe dream out the window. So Minnesota at Detroit, week 18, that will decide the number 1 seed in the NFC. Eagles will be number 2. So nothing to play for next week. And I know we're going to have the question. I think the question was already answered by the way the Eagles handled it. So
You mean at the end of the game?
Yes. I think it was pretty clear what went on. And if the record was going to be in play, no matter what, in week 18, they would have let Saquon finish the game, but they didn't. They got to 2,000 yards. He tapped out. Lane Johnson probably had the best quote, which was, I'll pull it up. I don't have it in front of me, but basically, yeah, Lane might have let the cat out of his bag, I would say, for what the Eagles plan on doing. Now, at the time, remember, there was still a chance that they could get the number 1 seed, and if that opportunity was there, they were going to play. They were going to play the game, and Saquon would probably get the record. Even better against his own old team, which makes it, I think, even more of a storyline for a lot of people. But for the Eagles, especially, remember what they went through last year. And I know people write it off because, they finished so poorly and, they were going to collapse anyway. They were going to lose anyway. Yeah, I mean, losing A.J. Brown in week 18. And by the way, that wasn't it. They lost Reed Blankenship, who didn't play. They lost Sidney Brown, who didn't play. And at the time, Sidney was a bigger part of the puzzle. Remember, they didn't have C.J. Gardner-Johnson last year. So they were down to their, no Reed Blankenship, no Sidney Brown. You had to play Avonte Maddox at safety. All because of week 18. Now, I'll be the first one to say you can't legislate injuries. I believe that. You also shouldn't tempt fate. And how's everybody going to feel if in a meaningless game chasing, I don't want to say meaningless record, but in the big picture, from the Eagles' perspective, they got bigger goals, which Nick's hinted at his post-game press conference.
I see both sides of this argument, John. I see the making history. I see, do you want Jalen Hurts on the bench for 3 straight weeks going into the playoffs? I think this is a historic feat that you're going to try to do something that's never been done in the NFL. You're trying to surpass a record that's lived for 40 years. I see both sides of it, but I more side with you of get ready for the playoffs, get ready to gear up and go, because that's the main goal. But, John, as someone pointed out to me on social media last night, the players care more about this stuff than fans do. Fans want the ultimate goal, and that's the Super Bowl. Players play for accolades. Players play for records. Players play for statistics ultimately, and they care. So I think if they have something to say, you think they would want to do it?
That's interesting because I see it the exact opposite. I see it the exact opposite. Like, I think.
Well, that's not really true, John.
I think the only people who care about this record are, and not all fans, but certain fans. Now, does that mean Saquon wouldn't want it? Sure, he'd want it. Of course,
John,
he
Eric Dickerson's talking about his record 40 years later. Players
Of
care.
course, of course, he would want it. But Saquon also understands the bigger picture. And again, if this team were 9-8, yeah, they're going for it. He understands the bigger picture. He's the first in line, you know. And I got Lane's quote. Eric Dickerson's record was 16 games, so if it was 17 games, it would make sense anyway, which I don't know what he was trying to say there. But Eric Dickerson is who he is. Saquon is who he is. We just wanted to get 2,000. We're fine with that. Better safe than sorry. I think Lane let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, they're most likely going to sit him. And I have no issue either way. I would understand either way. I think with the Giants, it would be a fun thing to set up. But the team has bigger goals, and ultimately we'll go with that. John, let's talk about that game last night, man. You sweep the Cowboys, you blow them out in 2 games this year, 75-13 across 2 games for the Dallas Cowboys versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Kenny Pickett looked pretty good. Tanner McKee looked pretty good. Johnny Mack and the defense creates 4 turnovers. What stuck out to you a day removed now from that big game yesterday?
Boy, the Cowboys stink. I know that there was one viral clip of an Eagles fan giving Jerry Jones the business and saying, keep doing what you're doing. Prodding him, which was pretty cool from that perspective. The Dallas Cowboys are an absolute abject mess. Now, part of it, obviously they lost a ton of talent to injury, and that happens. If Dak Prescott's out there, if Zach Martin's out there, if CeeDee Lamb's out there, if DeMarcus Lawrence is out there, Micah Parsons was healthy for the whole season, yada, 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 maybe they're fighting for the playoffs, but that's the NFL. Some years you have attrition, some years you don't. The team they rolled out yesterday was not good, and the Eagles took advantage of it. And even with backup quarterbacks, they dominated the game. A little bit of life early from Dallas, and then C.J. Gardner kind of snuffed it out with the pick 6 right away. So, and this Cowboys team is just not equipped to play from behind, not near. And it's funny to say that about the Cowboys because they've been so explosive over recent years. But the group that was out there yesterday, I mean, Rico Dowdle's their biggest playmaker. You could argue Cavante Turpin, but as I said, he's a manufactured touch guy on offense. It's not like you can get him the ball 10 times like you can do with CeeDee Lamb. So they were very limited. We said that all week coming into the game, very limited offensively, and that bode well for the Eagles. I didn't think they'd be, win the game. You never think a game's going to be 41-7 with backup quarterbacks, and give Kenny Pickett credit, man. The dude's playing through a broken rib. He's taking pain injections to get out there. He's got the team, it was a joke. When the Eagles list these injuries, they'll say questionable to return. Well, you knew he wasn't returning, even if he could, because the game was over. So why risk bait? Then Tanner McKee, so that got people excited. You told me yesterday. Came in, he got his first touchdown pass, 2 touchdown passes in 4 throws?
4 throws, yep.
So, the route was on. The Cowboys gave up, tapped out, whatever you want to call it. And that always makes Eagles fans happy, beating the Cowboys like a rented mule. Is basically
Tanner McKee had the fans fired up. Johnny Mac, Tanner Brady, they're calling him Tanner Manning.
Yeah, I don't think the context is there. As the Cowboys weren't exactly rolling out the 1927 Yankees or the Roger Staubach Cowboys. They had tapped out by the time. But nice job for Tanner, and I said AJ had the best arm on the field yesterday. no matter the quarterback.
Launch that sucker.
He launched that thing, his baseball background, and he was able to get it back. Forgot it was Tanner's first touchdown pass. By the way, the pass that AJ caught that wasn't a touchdown, that's one of the great. You had two of the best
That was Tanner's
receptions.
only incompletion
You had two of the best receptions I've ever seen in the NFL yesterday. Neither of them counted. I don't know if people saw the late game with Minnesota. Jefferson made a one-handed catch that got called back, and then AJ's one-handed catch, and they both didn't count. But yeah, that was probably his most impressive catch. But his arm strength is pretty impressive, and they were able to get the football back. So all ends well, and you'll probably get Tanner McKee this week, so everybody can get excited by that. Week 18, Tanner McKee Bowl.
Pretty funny stuff. All the people commenting about Tanner McKee. Now they played well though. Tanner McKee had some good balls. It was good to see that from him making some good throws out there to AJ Brown. As I mentioned, the one incompletion he had was that crazy catch. How about that catch, John? It literally stuck his hand like glue, dude. It didn't move when it hit his hand.
Yeah, two of them. Like I said, the other one was even better. But these guys, I don't know what it is with these gloves, but they might want to. It's too easy for some of these guys. The tackified gloves.
Yeah. Saquon Barkley, John, had a big game, 160 plus yards. He's up now over 2,000. We will be giving away a Saquon Barkley jersey. So for those who are in the chat and who are not a member, get your memberships in. Jersey Dude, thanks for becoming a member. We will do the Saquon Barkley jersey giveaway. And maybe, will it be the last one of the year? Will he go out there and try and set the record? John thinks he will not get out there. We will see what they end up doing, but it could be the last one until the playoffs, not of the year, until the playoffs. I will be doing the giveaways all through the playoffs as well. So we'll see what he does, but he breaks 2K yards, John. What a season for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, and he only had 40 yards at halftime.
I know, man. He was averaging like 3 yards a carry.
Yeah, so it was all the second half, and it was pretty much Saquon left, Saquon right. It was obvious what they were trying to do. A bunch of guys said it after the game. They were very aware. Evidently, that was the team goal, to get to 2,016 games. And they're very aware of what the number was. And as soon as he got it, Nick took him off the field. And again, I think that foreshadows, because if they're going for the record now, you might as well. The Cowboys had tapped out by that point, like I said.
Yeah.
You just would have kept them on the field and kept adding yards, and it would have been easy to do this week. Not that it wouldn't be easy to get 101 against the New York Giants, but I think they clearly foreshadowed it. Now, if Green Bay would have beaten Minnesota, changes, the complexion a little bit, then it becomes more of a difficult decision for Nick Sirianni. Because it would still be unlikely that they would get the number one seed, but it still might have been alive in a sense. And then it becomes more difficult, because then you can talk yourself into some things. Now I think it's pretty easy for them. I think everybody's on board, and I don't think it'll be much of an issue. Although I do agree with you that I think in a lot of ways the offensive line wanted this record even more than Saquon. Not that Saquon didn't want it, but they wanted to get it. But as Lane kind of said, I think that's the thought process.
Well, that's what I meant when I said, but I think players care about accolades, not in a negative. I didn't mean it in a negative way, but more so that, when you hang your cleats up, John, what you did during the game is ultimately how your career is defined, talked about, and discussed throughout the history of the game. And I think many of those players like those accolades, and I don't have a problem with that at all. That's what they're paid.
Well, I don't think anybody dislikes accolades. I mean, when this all started, Jordan was the one who kind of told me he didn't care about all pros or Pro Bowls. Jordan Mailata, he does, but from a standpoint of what would be more meaningful to him. He said the rushing record because of the historic nature of it. But again, as Lane would point out, you have all the holes being poked, 17 games, not 16 games, and all that stuff. And again, if it were even a Washington level team or a 7 seed level team, it's different. This is a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
So it's different. It's different.
Well, where are you on the Jalen Hurts element of it? Because I got to be honest with you, I don't love the idea of 3 weeks off going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't care. What is playing against the New York Giants going to do for Jalen Hurts?
Keeps the rust off, John. I mean, look, you don't do shows for a couple of days, you come back, it feels a little different. That's anything in life. I mean, he hasn't played for 3 weeks going into the playoffs. I think that's pretty significant time.
Yeah, I he's played a lot of football. I don't worry about that even. That doesn't even enter my mind. No, I mean, same as ever. Veteran players. I mean, we're talking about Shaq Barrett last week, and he's going back to Tampa Bay. Hasn't played all season. Now, is he going to be up to speed? No, because he hasn't played all season. But am I worried about the rut? That guy's played a ton of football. If he's in shape, he can help him. Yeah, for a guy who's been playing all season, he's played a lot. Playing the New York Giants would do nothing for Jalen Hurts. Nothing.
All right, if they start sluggish in the playoff,
well, they start sluggish every game anyway. I mean, they start sluggish every game anyway. That to me has nothing to do with it.
All right.
Now, if he plays poorly the entire game, I'm sure we'll revisit that, and but I still won't tie it to that. If he plays poorly, it's probably because he plays poorly. In a lot of ways, I mentioned there's a little bit of a silver lining to this because I think the finger is the bigger issue, and you allow that to calm down a little bit, and then maybe your ball handling and all that is back to not 100%, but as close to 100% as possible. So if anything, I looked at that as a bit of a silver lining that, and when it comes to the record and things like that, although Jalen's a big part of it because of the +1 nature, he makes it easier on Saquon Barkley. The opponents were going to make it easy on Saquon Barkley no matter what. So, and that's kind of borne out as well. But yeah, Jalen. Take the week off.
All right, nearly a month off it'll be for Jalen Hurts. Let's hope that the rust doesn't creep in. Many seem to think that that won't be a problem. I don't know. 3 weeks off from anything is a lot of time.
Well, they never start out well. That part doesn't. Oh, I've just been alerted that I won my wife's football pool again for a record fifth time this year.
Oh my gosh. John, you're running circles around your wife's office. Unbelievable. John, last thing I want to talk to you about, and we'll get to Jeff Kerr this morning. We have Chris Franklin in hour number 2. Plenty to talk about here on the show. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for being here. Don't forget to hit that like button for us. NFC East champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, they clinched that yesterday. John, people aren't going to like when I say this, but right now, if it ended today, the Philadelphia Eagles are locked in as the number 2 seed, and they would end up having to face the Green Bay Packers in round 1 in the wild card. To me, that's a bad draw. That is a bad draw. That is more of a divisional opponent, in my opinion. That's a tough game. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm scared of them. I think the Eagles can beat any team. But to get that team potentially in the first round, I think that's a tough draw for the Eagles.
Yeah, well, I agree because it's that type of year in the NFC. Although the Eagles should beat them, I do think it's a tough draw. But what wouldn't be a tough draw?
The Commanders. I'd feel much better about the Commanders.
Well, so would I. But I had a lot of people say, "Oh, then you get into it's hard to play a team 3 times."
See, that I don't buy. I don't buy the 3-time thing or the 3-game thing.
Well, I don't buy it either. The Eagles should win the game. I mean, Green Bay, I saw the end of that game and they came back again. They're just a dumb team. They're just a dumb team. Um, they the first time they played Minnesota, I think they were down 28-0 and they came back. And this time they were down 27-10 and they came and they didn't throw the ball until there's 6 minutes left in the game. And then they're boop, boop, boop right down the field. It's like, what are you doing, Matt LaFleur? Yeah, wake up. You know, they don't play the right way. They don't. So they're very talented. So I get it from that standpoint. But the problem in the NFC is, you know, you're going to have a 5 seed that wins probably 14 games,
which is crazy.
And you're going to have a 7 seed that probably wins 11 games. Well, not probably, because but so that's where we are. I mean, there's good teams, and to win in the playoffs, you're going to have to beat good teams. You know, if Tampa Bay was in, you know, they're obviously, if they get in, they're going to win the division most likely. So they won't be in the conversation, but people were worried about Tampa Bay because of the history against Tampa Bay.
Right.
You talk yourself into stuff. Now, Minnesota won 14 games. Detroit, you know, maybe 15, both of them, 14 or 15 for each of them. There's a bunch of good teams. So if you go to where you want to go, you're going to have to beat a bunch of good teams. And if it starts with Green Bay, it starts with Green Bay.
Who would you prefer to play, John, in that first round? If you had to pick, Commanders, Packers.
Well, Commanders. I mean, because I lean towards talent first, and I go back to last year when the Packers beat the you-know-what off the Cowboys, who were a good team at the time, on the road, because they're gifted, and if they play well on a given Sunday, they can beat anybody. But I also think they're dumb. I think Washington's better coached. I think Washington is a more sound team. But yeah, I always lean towards talent, and they have so many playmakers, Green Bay. So yeah, I'd rather play Washington.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
But don't underestimate the dumbness of that team, because that can affect them.
No doubt. Tan Tebow says, "Get a dog, Zander." Hey, dumbass. That's for you to be like, hey, I'm not afraid of anybody. Great. If you want to look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that, that's great. My job is to analyze all the game and the perspectives and the scenarios that can happen, Tan Tebow. I'd rather play the Washington Commanders. So I have a dog, and I'm good on that front, and I'm not scared of the Packers. Sit back and enjoy the show, my friend. I'll handle the content. Thank you very much. Here we go. Let's got a couple super chats here, Johnny Mac. JP Della Rosa says, Super Bowl 59 is on February 9th. Also, Barkley and DeJean's birthday, 26 plus 33 equals 59. Now we're going tinfoil hat here.
Numerology.
Yeah.
I'm not a superstitious guy, JP.
No, me neither.
I don't believe in any of that bullshit. So if they play well, they'll get to the Super Bowl. If they don't, they probably won't. They have a chance.
I'm not buying that piece of numerology right there at all.
Yeah, they have a chance. I mean, they're a good team, but there's a bunch of good teams in the NFC. I do think if the Eagles play well and stay healthy, Week 18, I think they're in the conversation for being the best team because of the attrition to Detroit, because of the cornerbacks of Minnesota. I think styles make fights. So if you want to go all the way down the road, you know, how do the Eagles beat Minnesota? Well, they take advantage of the cornerbacks. How did the Eagles beat Detroit? Well, they take advantage of all the attrition on the defense. So they have a chance, but it will have nothing to do with the date of the Super Bowl or the birthdays of Saquon Barkley.
That I agree with. Josh Herman checks in. He says Super Bowl wins are a record too. If he gets the rushing record and loses in the postseason, it will be more disappointing than losing the record and winning the Super Bowl.
Oh, no question. I mean, you know, if this team doesn't win the Super Bowl, people are going to be beside themselves. And if this team doesn't win the Super Bowl because Saquon Barkley turns his ankle Week 18 chasing a record, again, I don't like thinking that way. You can't legislate injuries. If they had a 10% chance to get the number 1 seed, I would say play. They, you know, I was sitting next to Bob Brookover in the press box yesterday, and we're looking at each other. For those who don't know, Saquon Barkley had his season high in carries yesterday. They kept feeding him the ball to get to 2,000, and we're looking at each other. Are they really doing this? Like, I thought he should have been pulled yesterday. I mean, so, and you can't. Guys have gotten hurt in practice this year. AJ Brown got hurt in practice, for people that forget, early in the season. Ben Van Sumeren, just a special teams player people forget. He had a season-ending injury in practice. You can get hurt anywhere in this league, but the odds are a lot greater, and Saquon doesn't do much of practice on top of that.
Yeah.
The odds are a lot greater that if he doesn't play, he's going to be completely healthy. You can't guarantee that if he does play, and it's a meaningless game.
You can't guarantee it either way, but the odds are a lot better if he does not play. I understand that, but I mean, I don't know. There is a part of me that's like, you can get hurt running onto the field like you saw last year.
Well, yeah. Well, it's a game of odds.
They're professionals. Let them go out there and set the record. But I do understand the other side. If you can manage it, I understand that. Josh Herman follows up and he says, Packers can't win big games. They've lost all season. That's correct. Their 5 losses are 2 to Detroit, 2 to, I guess, the Vikings now. The Vikings now beat them twice, and 1 of the Eagles.
Yeah, that they've lost to good teams. I don't know if they've lost big games. I don't know if regular. Yeah, again, the definition of big games changes with people's. I would always joke that, Eagles fans with Andy Reid can't win a big game. He's in 19 championship games. He's in Super Bowls. Can't win a big game. So it's not the big game until you lose a game. Then it's a big game.
Well, that's fair. Yeah, I think at this point, though, the Packers' biggest games have obviously been those ones of the year. You're right. If they get to the NFC title game, that's the real big game. I understand what you're saying.
So, similar to last year, they got hot at the right time. They generally play well down the stretch. They came back in that game. If you watch the fourth quarter of that game, you probably don't want to do that, because then you'll be really scared. Zander might have to buy another dog if you watch the fourth quarter of that game, because they just went right down the fucking field. But luckily, that's the way they play. And that's why they've lost games before, and they play around. And, then when it becomes a sense of urgency, then they tap into their playmakers. So, who's to say they're not going to play that way against the Eagles? Ball behind, and maybe you're holding on for dear life, but so what? You hold on for dear life.
Yeah, it's true. We'll see how it all plays out. Rich Nutt checks in with a member for 4 months. Thank you, guys. All of our members will be doing a member giveaway with the Saquon Barkley jersey, and Bombay Trippy upgraded. Thank you, Bombay. Appreciate that, brother. Rich Nutt says, I want both, the record and the Super Bowl. One doesn't preclude the other. How many Super Bowl chances will you have in 40 years? Who knows? No risk, no reward. That's fair.
And you can't, it's the litmus test. Are you going to give the team shit if he sprains his ankle and he's unable to play in the first round of the playoffs and they lose? I think you're going to give him shit.
I think it's fair to make somebody ask that question when they say, I want him to play. All right. Yeah. If he plays, are you fine with that? All right. I think that's a fair question. Good stuff there, Johnny Mack. We got Jeff Kerr. I see my man Jeff in the green room. Had a little connection issue. Now he's in, looking good. Jeff, we're going to get to you in a second. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks everybody for watching this morning. Don't forget to hit that like button. The Philadelphia Eagles are NFC East champs. They have won 13 games now this year. They're 13-3. And they have secured the number 2 seed in the NFC. So now the sights have shifted, and we will focus on the playoffs. One more game, Week 18 game versus the New York Giants to play, and that might be that might be another backup bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles. So we will see about that. Let's get to our commercial break. Before I do that, I want to tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go check them out. You can see the promo code I put on your screen. It's YouTube 150. Gives you 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit. And you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at betus.com. That's betus.com.pa. Go check them out. Tell them Birds 365 sent you and use that promo code. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, on Birds 365.
Ignite your nights with free